Okay.
And later that night, being still up and awake in more ways than one, I came across a group of 7 people with their gear and a dog sitting around down under the space by the Berkeley Student Center, and sat in, and we smoked a little herb, several different kinds of herb, including marijuana, but different kinds of herb that they had.
God damn! I was running around
And,
the theater right across the.
Well, our paths probably crossed because I was all over the place that night. It was a long night.
That guy walks around and eats grass all the time.
Anyway, I started to, and as I said, I was really taking my time because I was locked out of my van at the time, and I didn't want to deal, feeling good and having just had this very positive night. I didn't want to deal with, and I wasn't particularly sleepy, and I had just given.
So you went to talk to these people, and they told you about.
They told me about this rainbow gathering going on in Wyoming, and why were they weren't there? They were, and it took me a couple hours to listen. I actually liked the idea. After a few minutes, 30 minutes or so, I was sort of ready to go, but I was ashamed to admit that I was locked out of my Volkswagen van. And so I sat around there, and we got very creative. We smoked Damiana. It was the first time I'd ever smoked Damiana, which is an aphrodisiac and an herb and a very pleasant lung cleaner and a nice thing that you can smoke with other herbs and everything. It's got its own sort of space that it puts you into, but it's pretty mellow and stuff, and it's just we were sharing whatever we had as a sacrament, and telling stories and playing music and talking about how great this rainbow gathering would be. And it was the first I'd ever heard of rainbow gathering or rainbow family. Rainbow family then was sort of a nebulous thing, not exactly sure who it was or what, but I'd never heard of a rainbow gathering until then, and so that night was when I heard. And when I got up the courage to admit that I was locked out of my Volkswagen van, one of them went back with me, and we managed to,
get yourself in.
Get myself in my van. And so there were 7 guys, including myself, and 1 girl, and named Spectre, and a dog, and we called ourselves Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs. We hopped in my van and didn't stop until we hit Wyoming, except when we had to change the flat and for gas.
Really?
Obviously, I didn't drive the whole time.
Who paid for it? Did you have money in your pocket?
I had money. This was just after I'd been at MIT previously, and then I had been doing various working gigs in Boston before that, including I was a longshoreman in Boston. I worked on a boat, and I did various things. I had a little money. I had one of my parents' credit cards for gas, which got us the extra tire. At that point, I had a little bit invested in traveling around the country because we were involved in up till that time. Had been actively involved in the anti-war movement to stop the war,
and had
just culminated.
What were these 7 guys? 6 guys.
They were sort of similar people that were just sort of on the road and just happened to be brought together there, and that all knew about the rainbow gathering but didn't have any way to get there, and were together for no reason than that, except that they all.
So where did they hear about the rainbow gathering?
On the streets of Berkeley, most of them. Some of them traveling up and down the coast of California and Oregon and stuff. They all knew about it before I did. I was relatively new to the streets at that point.
There weren't posters
I had
out
done
on the
some.
streets.
No. There were some signs in a few selected co-ops and stuff, especially in Oregon and Northern California. And if you knew the right people and stuff, you would find out. But a lot of people that knew did not find out where it was, or did not get there. A lot of people didn't know.
What'd you find when you got there? What was there? You drove up in your Volkswagen van. What'd you do? 7 guys and a girl calling themselves Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs.
Well, actually, one of the first things I did was proceed to start painting my van.
Start painting your van.
After the gathering, I took a whole crew, some of which were similar, same different crew, but which kept getting different. But after that rainbow gathering, I spent several months touring around the West. But the first thing we did was go up to Montana to near Flathead Lake, and a dozen people started painting my van so I could get out of the car. So it actually started right
in Wyoming.
Spectre painted something on my van, and as soon as we hit the rainbow gathering in Wyoming, okay.
Now you drove up. Was there a sign at the entrance or at the
the original Welcome Home Hippies sign was at the not at the head of the trail, but at the end of the trail when the trail down, which was 3+ miles, actually got down to the gathering site. At the first sign that you were at the gathering site was a big rainbow Welcome Home Hippies. That's the original Welcome Home Hippies sign. That now you see reproduced
after you walked the 3 miles down the trail.
Yeah, from the parking lot.
What was at the head of the trail?
The head of the trail was the parking lot. Well, first there was out of Lander, Wyoming, we had instructions to follow a certain road, and it was a road that was a scenic drive up through the mountains, and every once in a while there'd be a pile of rocks or a rainbow sign to tell us where to go, and they told us that there was a painted rainbow and a pile of rocks at the road that we've turned off on to go to the parking lot, which was 20 miles
Painted rainbow
into
and
the
a pile
Wind
of
River
rocks.
Ridge, the Wind River Mountains of
Okay.
the Rockies, near the just east of the Continental
Had
Divide.
you seen a bunch of hitchhikers in the last 100 miles, or did you
No,
keep
no, no. Well, we were pretty full. We had seen a few, but coming across until we got near the gathering sites, i.e. Lander, Wyoming, we didn't see hardly anybody else on the way there.
Okay.
There were a few thousand people at the gathering, all told.
Okay, so you
generally
drove
maybe
up,
3,000 or 4,000 at any one point.
There's a parking
As opposed
lot.
to now, you get 10 or 20,000 at one time,
Yeah.
depending on some of these big gatherings.
So 3,000 or 4,000 at this one.
I would say, but generally there may have been at one time there may have been 2,000 or 3,000.
And this
it's not over 2,000 or 3,000.
It lasted a week.
Yeah. You know, it was generally supposed to be the 4th, but it was always sort of about a week. You know,
Yeah.
even before it was
And
officially a week. It was officially the 4th, but there were people there earlier setting up, and there were people there
How
later.
many kitchens were there?
There were several. There were only several kitchens. Dominic's kitchen was one. There was a main kitchen, and there were Dominic's kitchen.
Who supplied
and there
the
were
food?
other, the food was all donated and brought by people who came there.
Brought by people. Was this a? And just people just brought food, or somebody
People were
told them
told
to bring food?
People were encouraged to bring food. A lot of people just bought food on their own. That were not
Just brought big bunches of food.
Yeah, sacks
gotta
of
feed
grain
2,000
and things.
people, that's a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah.
food.
We did collect. We did start collecting money with a magic hat. And
At that
was,
time?
Well, I don't know if that's the first time that it had ever been done. I'm
No,
sure that
just
people had passed
to your
hats
knowledge.
for
To your
years and
knowledge.
years. That's
The magic hat was called a magic hat, and
that's to my knowledge the first time such a thing officially happened as a
somebody
magic
took
hat.
that money and went out and bought more food.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
and people made trips into Lander
That's
and
how-
stuff
that's
to,
how it was
to
done.
do that. But most of the food was already brought by people
Already,
who,
okay.
you know.
The kitchens were set up by individuals.
There was a collective kitchen set up by
Collectives.
people there collectively, which was
Okay.
organized by individuals.
Were like the diggers there, or anybody, original diggers?
No, individually there were people there.
Individual
but
rigs.
there were no organized kitchens except Dominic got a crew together of people
Okay.
and did there were people from all of these old communes and different
Oh, there were.
and
So
different individually. There were no organized groups there. It was
Okay.
totally amorphous, totally
We are all here
non-political, except that
individually.
our alternative lifestyle and alternative community was political,
Okay.
just being there.
So
in
2,000
73.
alternative livers. Okay, and so
And so we played a lot of music, and we talked about a lot of high things. It was we shared. One night in Wyoming around a campfire, I spent. It was the first time. Now you see all kinds of people with all kinds of things through all kinds of their skin. At that point, I had never seen anybody with anything other than a normal type earring sort of type thing, pretty much, except for somebody from a completely different culture. One night around the campfire, I saw 4 girls get their noses pierced. That was the first time I'd ever seen that. Anybody would get their nose pierced.
yeah.
And I'd seen people from India with their nose pierced, but I'd never seen an American with their nose pierced, and I'd never seen anybody actually do it. So one night I sat and watched 4 people get their nose pierced. That was not one of the highlights, but it's one of the
Nobody
stranger
fainted?
things that happened. No.
would've
We
fainted,
were all
man.
no. Actually, there were four young girls, and they all took it very.
They took it very well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, good.
I
I fainted when I had my ear pierced.
would have fainted if they'd screamed, or something. But it did not.
So what was the structure?
And it was absolutely unstructured. If things needed to be done, people volunteered to do it.
Were there medical people there?
There were medical people there.
Was it a crew of medical people who took
It was a
on the
volunteer
responsibility?
crew of people who gathered together what they needed to do medical things for
There
people.
was
who were
medicine there?
There was medicine there. There were no major medical trips that didn't go
Normal
untreated.
cuts and bruises
It was,
and people
yeah,
freaking out.
the sunburn, poison.
Now, where
IDs and stuff.
there's this concept of calm,
Uh,
CALM.
yeah, which
Now,
has evolved out
was
of
that there?
MASH. No, not as an organized thing. No,
Not
this
as
is
an
way
organized
before there was
thing.
any organization
Okay. So
of
there was
MASH.
no
or trauma.
organization.
No, there was a group of people that came together to do a volunteer medical crew
Okay.
because they volunteered for it, assuming that anybody needed medical
Assuming
attention
there was-
as needed.
Assuming there was LSD
Just like people
there.
There was nothing
Well,
bad there.
I'm assuming.
There was some.
Okay. Now, even if there is nothing bad there,
Mhm.
there are some people who react adversely to LSD, whether it's good or bad. And people that react adversely to eating rice too. So we
Uh-huh.
can't. But just on that level.
To my knowledge, there were